Hello, Peaceful Valley Church. It's Friday. We've finished another week. We did take a little bit of time off of looking at Psalm 104. We had a couple other things going on this week, but today I do want to finish the week by looking at Psalm 104. You may recall last Sunday I had suggested that you spend some time looking at this psalm just as an example of looking for things that are true about God. And the first probably half of this psalm are talking about the things that God has done. He's a creator, but he takes a little bit of time the psalmist does, to think about water. This is a strange little side thought, but watch what the psalmist identifies about God's use of water. This is Psalm 104, starting in verse 5. I'm going to read through verse 13. Psalm 104, verse 5. He set the earth on its foundations so that it should never be moved. He covered it with the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At your rebuke they fled. At the sound of your thunder they took to flight. The mountains rose, the valleys sank down to the place that you appointed for them. You set a boundary that they may not pass, so that they might not again cover the earth. Verse 10, you make springs gush forth in the valleys. They flow between the hills. They give drink to every beast of the field. The wild donkeys quench their thirst. Beside them, the birds of the heavens dwell. They sing among the branches. From your lofty abode, you water the mountains. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of your work. This first section of verses is talking, if you will, about the dangerous use of water in God's hands. He covered the earth. The waters stood above the mountains. There was a point in time where the waters needed rebuked, and then God had to put them in their place and set a boundary so that the water would not cover the earth again. This is clearly a reference to the flood. He rebuked the water, and it went back to its place, not to cover the earth again. But then in the second part, starting in verse 10, we see a different use of water. God waters things. He gives the animals and the plants and the trees something to drink using this water. What does this teach us about God, who can take water and flood the earth, and he can take water and feed the earth? What does it say about God, who can take the same object, in this case water, and destroy and bring life? It seems like you would think, oh, water is good or water is bad. And what we find here is actually in God's hands, he can do whatever he wants with it. Did the earth need judged due to the sin of man? Absolutely yes. God in his justice used water to judge the earth. But what about in the rest of our times, both before the flood and after the flood? The water is used to give life to plants and animals. In fact, when we look at verse 13, the second half, the earth is satisfied with the fruit of your work. God's work is to water, like in the beginning of verse 13, you water the mountains. God's work brings life, or God's work destroys, all with the same object, in this case, again, water. That's the kind of God that we have. He is so utterly capable. It doesn't matter what he has in his hands, he can accomplish his plans with it. You might look at your own life and you might think, it's not worth anything, or maybe it's been this way or that way, or I'm not in the right place, or I'm worn out, or I'm tired, or I'm sick, or I'm old, or I'm young, or I'm inexperienced. And you look at all the different ways we can define and describe our own life and think, I don't see how I could ever be useful. But what we have to know is in God's hands, he accomplishes good purposes. He makes things the way he wants them to be. If he can use water to either judge the world or feed the world, he can use you to accomplish any number of things that he has in his plans. My hope for you today is to recognize that in God's hands, your life and all the parts of your life are useful for his good purposes. This is an incredibly encouraging thing to understand, but we also have to realize sometimes we're not going to recognize what God's doing. The blessing that we have is we don't really have to know what the plan is. We just have to know that God knows what the plan is, and he makes good plans. He uses whatever he has in his hands to accomplish those plans, and today, you and your life are in his hands. So be encouraged today. God is doing something in you and through you, and it's good. So be encouraged today. May God bless us as we wrap up our week and go into the weekend. I look forward to being with you on Sunday morning for our church service at 9 o'clock. Have a good day, Peaceful Valley Church. Goodbye.